This episode of Out of Spec Reviews is brought to you by Magna. More on that later. Hello and welcome to the beautiful hills above Los Angeles, and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Behind me is the Porsche Cayenne E-Hybrid, this one in coupe form rather than the full boxy SUV. But I have it up here because I want to do sort of a torture test of the electric motor and its system for the plug-in hybrid version. Now, the title of this video is Porsche Solves My Biggest Problem with Plug-in Hybrids, and that's true. So why don't we start with the giant problem that they're solving, and then we'll see how stout their electric systems are. And then, of course, in the future, we're going to take this for a performance driving review and see if arguably the least sporty Porsche can still shred hard. First of all, before we go, just a couple points of things that I'm noticing within the car community. A lot of people come up here to either adventure or to experience their cars on some of the best driving roads. And well, all of this trash everywhere is just not cool. A, it's not good for the environment. B, it makes it so we can't really enjoy the places we truly love. There's so many car enthusiasts that are driving on the roads responsibly, staying between, as I say, the mustard and the mayo, staying on their side of the road. But this weekend, I have seen more crazy driving than ever before out here in the canyon. So as much as you guys know I drive hard and you see me pushing cars, you'll never see me crossing double yellows and doing stuff crazy on the streets. If you're going to drive like that, please take it to the track, stay on your side of the road. Seriously, almost saw people get killed this weekend. It's just insane. Anyway, this isn't about the performance of the Cayenne today. We're talking all about the electric systems. So let me walk you through how the drivetrain works, how the battery pack works, how the charging of everything works, and then what we're going to do is charge it up pretty much to full and drive it straight up the canyon, go canyon carving, going all the way up to almost 6,000 or 7,000 feet of elevation from down here at about 1,500 or 2,000 where we are now. So big hill climb without using the combustion engine. You see, one of my biggest problems with plug-in hybrid vehicles is that they kind of suck in the electric side. So many people say a plug-in hybrid is a gateway to an electric vehicle, but arguably, I've never really shared that same opinion, and especially it changes for different cars. For example, plug-in hybrids' electric motors are typically pretty slow. They're pretty low power, and they also don't charge that fast because they typically only have 3 kilowatt onboard charging, and they have no range. So it's like, wow, the electric bit of your car is the worst bit. Why would that ever encourage you to get a fully battery electric vehicle? I don't know. Some people look at it the other way where, oh, you can actually do most of your driving electric. But the problem is typically, at least in most plug-in hybrids that I've driven, the electric portions really don't make much power. And that means that to get out of your own way, even in city driving on a typical commute, you wouldn't be able to do that fully battery electric. With the Porsche here, it's actually really interesting because the electric motor makes over 200 pound-feet of torque and about 134 horsepower or so. But what's interesting is that's mounted before the transmission, which it's not the first vehicle we've driven with a setup like this, but it means that you can have torque multiplication at low speed. For example, it still has the 1 to 4.3 first gear ratio, for example, and then it changes as you obviously accelerate and run up through the gears in the gearbox. What that means is the electric motor can operate in its better power and efficiency curve for more of the time. It also means that you can go pretty high speed in full electric mode here in the Cayenne, all the way up to 84 miles an hour, which is great. So what we're going to see is actually how hard can you drive in full electric mode utilizing this pre-transmission gear ratio advantage, a pretty healthy electric motor with a cooling system. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the battery pack, but then I'm going to tell you what my biggest problem is with plug-in hybrids. So starting here with the battery pack stuff. Now this particular Cayenne is a fairly tame spec. This is the Cayenne E-Hybrid Coupe, which means it's pretty much the standard car and it's lightly optioned. It's got summer tires, it's got rear wheel steering, it's got air suspension, but it's about $104,000 as it sits right here. Still qualifies for the tax credit because of the battery system. Has about an 18 kilowatt hour gross battery pack, about 14 and a bit usable. Of course, plug-in hybrids get huge discharge and charge cycles, so you do need quite a bit of buffer for longevity. But then also, this one only has a 3.6 kilowatt onboard charger. Thankfully, wow, that was the worst sounding Chrysler Crossfire I've ever heard. Thankfully, you can option a 7.2 kilowatt onboard charger. It's $1,000 or so. It's exactly what I would do. The first thing I would option on the Cayenne would be to get the faster onboard charger, because again, with such a stout electric drivetrain, in theory, you would want to do most of your driving electric, which means a lot of filling up midday. In terms of the range you can expect from the Cayenne, it's rated at 17 miles EPA in their combined cycle, which doesn't sound like much. So at the end of this video, stick around. We're actually going to take this on a city range test, and we'll see how far we can actually get out of the battery pack. I suspect a bit more than 17 miles. But here's my biggest problem with plug-in hybrids is the way that they're integrated to work with the combustion engine. So many times I'm driving plug-in hybrids and I tend to lock them in their pure electric mode, sort of whatever maximizing full EV would be. And some plug-in hybrids don't actually even help you get to full acceleration in electric mode before kicking on the combustion engine, but most do. And the way that works is typically you can go all the way down on the accelerator pedal, gives you everything the electric motor can do, and then there's usually a little kick down switch at the bottom of the pedal that will fire up the combustion engine. The problem with doing that is you're firing up a stone cold engine at full boost and full revs for the first time it starts in the day, and that's always a little bit annoying. So here there's a really cool function in the accelerator pedal when you drive it in full electric mode that I'm calling the plunger. It's essentially a secondary adaptive kickdown switch that allows you to not only retain a more natural pedal position feel, because it means that the first 30% or so of the pedal's just controlling the electric motor, so it doesn't feel like you're going all the way down. And also it means that when you go and you push past this false floor that's dynamic, it means that the motor's not starting up under full boost, it's just starting up gently. And then you also don't get this huge surge of torque on a cold engine, it just accelerates nicely. So here I am most impressed with the integration of everything. Let me show you a little bit about what I'm talking about, then we're gonna jump in the car and see how it drives. So take a look inside here. By the way, what a wonderful cabin this Bordeaux red interior is. Now, I'm not really a red interior guy, but this looks pretty good, I have to say. Big glass roof. I have the shade covered right there. We have the 14-way power seats. But this is what I'm talking about here on the pedal. By the way, there's tons of different drive modes here in the Porsche. So you can go electric, hybrid, sport, sport plus, or sport response with that middle button right there. I'll talk about more of those when we do our full driving review. But this is the kickdown switch I'm referring to. You go down all the way down full. See that? That little button at the bottom? That's typically a kickdown switch. When you lock the vehicle in its full electric driving profile, essentially that kickdown switch moves up to meet the pedal about 30% of the way in. And that leads to, I think, the best electric driving experience a plug-in hybrid vehicle could offer. Because, again, it's not going to be as fast as it would be in full electric form. So you definitely are utilizing not full power. And so you don't get the impression that you're to the floor. It just feels very natural. And, of course, it still shifts gears in electric mode, which is pretty interesting. So you'll feel the 1, 2, 3. But I think enough blabbering now. I'm not going to tell you all about the specs, but I'll tell you a little bit about the car. 455 horsepower, 511 pound-feet of torque, $104,000. Of course, it's the standard Cayenne plug-in hybrid. They have an S, they have a Turbo SE crazy thing. And this is just the base one, and it's still awesome in so many ways. So let's jump in, let's go drive it up the hill and see how far we can go on a charge, of course, in the worst case scenario. But what I'm mostly wanting to focus on is, we'll do the city range test later. What I mostly want to focus on is, can the thermals handle it? Because it's typically plug-in hybrids I can overheat. And can it actually drive normally in electric mode? Because if it can, then this would become a very recommendable plug-in hybrid option for many. This episode is proudly brought to you by Magna. Magna is a mobility technology company that is super unique because they touch every aspect of almost every car on the market, especially a lot of electric vehicles, and they even can produce vehicles from the ground up. Now, you may remember I shot a series just recently testing some of their new electric vehicle powertrains, so stay tuned for a lot of Magna content to come. We're going to be going in depth with some really interesting topics with these guys, and Out of Spec wants to thank Magna for sponsoring this review and tons of other videos to come right here on Out of Spec. We look forward to working with Magna to define and find out what the future of mobility looks like. Welcome to the inside of the Cayenne. Time for our electric torture test. What I'm doing now is I'm charging it up in e-charge. We're at about 93-94% state of charge. It doesn't love to go all the way up to 100 in e-charge, and that's just because the battery can't accept that much power. Just like an electric car, the charging curve slows down to the point where even in e-charge mode, it will still output power from time to time when needed, and it seems to settle in that mid 90% range or so, and I have that gauge right here. So I've reset our trip computer. I'm going to go into electric mode. We're going to test not only that accelerator plunger, but we're also going to test its power and longevity. So into drive on the 8-speed, torque converter auto, by the way, into E mode, vehicle is shut off, Model 3 going through, and we are accelerating. Oh, rear wheel steering is wonderful. No one's coming. We're going to need full acceleration in EV mode. This is a torture test. We want to drive this thing as a Porsche, but in electric only mode. And this plunger, I'm just sitting right on it, which is really nice. So the fact that Porsche's pedal strategy is in the sense where if you lock it in electric mode, a lot of EVs, you have to go to the kickdown switch. You get full travel of the accelerator pedal to just modulate the little electric motor portion. And in the Porsche, that's not how it works. The Porsche is essentially, if you think about it this way, the whole accelerator pedal is total system power combined, no matter what. And they might have different pedal mapping for different modes, and it is. If you put it in Sport Plus, the pedal actually elongates a little bit so you can use more of that travel, get more modulation, especially when the boost comes on the engine. It's a little bit smoother in my opinion. And when you lock it in E mode, essentially what it does is it limits the amount of pedal travel you have before you hit this false floor. And you can push past the false floor, and I'll get to that here in a second as well. But what it means is it doesn't feel like I'm having to sit wide open throttle. If you were just an average person starting the car, you're like, oh, I'm giving it like a little tiny bit of juice, same as normal, and the car's just moving, same as normal. It doesn't fool you into thinking you're going full throttle and that's all I can do, which is a really interesting feeling. And the other interesting feeling with this is the electric motor is mounted before the transmission. So it goes combustion engine, electric motor in the middle, 8-speed torque converter after that. And so what it means is I'm actually in 5th gear right now, and it's pulling us up. We just lost a GoPro, got to pull over, get that plugged in. Skirt. Okay, GoPro's back on, plugged in this time. I always forget I have one faulty battery, and I must have that one in there, unfortunately. So let's not go. What was I saying? I was saying that, yeah, this false floor makes it really easy to keep it just at wide open throttle. And so the gearing, 1st gear, 2nd gear, it means that the electric motor can stay in its optimization window of torque and power, because a lot of people think electric motors just make flat power everywhere. Well, actually they don't. They have torque and power curves. And so what Porsche probably did was select an electric motor, or develop one, I don't know, it probably comes from a supplier, that fits really nicely with the same power and torque band, where the engine's, you know, probably, you know, 1 to 4,000 RPM range. And so that means that if I'm in 4th gear, and now we're in 5th gear, you can't even feel it shift. I'm just looking at the gauge here. 6th gear, can't even feel it. When the combustion engine kicks on, it's paired really nicely with that electric motor to get good boost out of it and to be pretty seamless. What you really want is a harmoniously matched electric motor to your combustion drivetrain for a particular gear ratio, and I would say that Porsche nailed it here. A lot of electric or plug-in hybrid cars don't do it this way. The other thing that I really like about this is the electric motor is connected before the transmission. Now, BMW does it this way. We've driven many plug-in hybrids that are like this, and it does give this odd feeling, especially at low speed where it has to shift gears. And while I do think that's a downside to having a transmission like this, for example, off the line, it goes first gear, and then you can notice a torque dip when it switches 1, 2, 3. Once you're moving, though, you really don't feel it upshift and downshift. Occasionally, if you're just cruising and you go right to the plunger point, right to the end of the usable accelerator pedal in electric mode, you can feel a slight hesitation as it drops a gear or two, but it's really not bad considering what most plug-in hybrids are. The other way to do a plug-in hybrid is to mount your own electric motor on the axle itself, similar to how, again, I'll use Volvo as an example. They have a combustion engine that powers the front axles, a traditional front-wheel drive setup, and then not connected mechanically would be an electric motor on the rear axle that just powers that. And to me, those drive pretty weird. I love them, don't get me wrong, like a V60 Polestar plug-in hybrid wagon, I'm all about it, love it. But it is a little bit awkward in the corners when I'm like hard throttle, want to come around the corner, and it just drives like a front wheel drive car, because either one of two things happened. We overheated the electric motor or battery pack, which does happen in those, and B, it's just like primarily front wheel driven, you know, especially at speed. An electric motor that has a fixed gear ratio for a plug-in system optimized for the city doesn't make that much power once you're above 40-50 miles an hour. The nice thing with having BMW's plug-in system or something like this here in the Porsche is no matter what, I'm getting the combustion engine with the electric motor powertrain pre-transfer case, pre-torque split. So the car's front rear torque split is still going to happen whether I'm in electric mode, fully combustion mode, or they're operating together. The car is getting the power to where I need it to go, which does not compromise driving dynamics, especially for corner exit. And that I really appreciate. How many people off the street appreciate it? I don't know, but it just is like, I get why they do it. I get why the electric motor is pre-transmission, and I think it's the right case. So let's talk about what we're experiencing right now. We've already burned a lot of juice. We started here at 95%. We're at about 70% state of charge in 3.8 miles. At the end of this video, I'm going to play you a city range test that I did. I did this yesterday, actually, where I started the car full, drove it till it ran out of battery, simulating a commute in an urban environment. I do this with every plug-in hybrid vehicle, and it's not necessarily the like end-all be-all scientific range testing like we do for electric cars, because it's an urban environment. It's not a standardized range test, but it is a test just driving around under 40 miles an hour. And the car did, I'll save you this time at the end, it did 26 miles plus or minus at the end of that test, which is pretty good. I think it was closer to 27 miles on a single charge. Keep in mind, this car's only rated for 17. And something that I have found to mostly testing electric plug-in hybrid systems that are pre-transmission is they tend to do better at higher speed than those that have a single fixed gear mounting or strategy. And that makes sense, because the electric motor is just, it's spinning in its pure efficiency curve is where you can keep it running, which is awesome, because it's not just motor efficiency, it's inverter efficiency, it's battery pack output efficiency. There's so many things that go into it that yeah, this seems to optimize for electric efficiency in its full EV mode, I would say. All right, let's get back to, I know I keep saying let's get back to it, but I want to tell you what I'm feeling now. Again, I'm using, about that 30% of the throttle travel, but I'm not even using all of it. The car gives me an insanely good power meter of electric usage. It's straight out of the 918, basically. I have these green dots that come under the display that shows when I lift off and hit the brakes that it regens, when I go down to the accelerator pedal that it actually is outputting e-power. I love what they call it. And there seems to be a nominal and peak rating here for the e-power, at least in the systems, because I've noticed that it will hit full e-power peak before I've touched the plunger in some cases. And sometimes, like right here, I'm touching the plunger, it really seems to like be giving me a bunch of torque right there, more than normal. And so I would guess that this electric motor has a peak rating where it can do boost function, it can do, you know, big torque spikes from time to time, and then it can kind of just sit where this gauge maxes out for the most part, and maybe we'll feel that throughout this climb. The other really impressive thing here is that I'm maintaining more than the posted speed limit, allegedly. Again, we're not shredding, in electric mode on a steep uphill incline. A lot of people don't realize how crazy that is for a plug-in hybrid to do it. See, the thing that I struggle with most plug-in hybrids is it sounds good on paper, right? It's I can drive electric every day, and then I have a gas car to take me on a road trip if I need to. That's sort of the selling point, is like no range anxiety, and you know, you can still use electric driving for your day-to-day stuff around town. You just charge it up overnight at home. The problem for me is most plug-in hybrids in electric mode, because I'm a nerd and want to keep it in EV mode most of the time, can't get out of their own way. And so you end up like going wide open throttle before you hit the kickdown switch a lot of times in plug-in hybrids, and you really like hold up traffic. Like some of them are dangerously slow. And what I wanted to demonstrate here is I'm not even going full throttle all that much in this car, and I'm going, again, over the speed limit on big uphills, which shows that the electric motor is sized correctly for the 5,000 plus pound weight of this thing, and the gearing with the transmission helps get it to move. That is key to making a plug-in hybrid livable. The last component that I absolutely love about this pedal strategy, where you're not, again, going to the kickdown switch like most electric cars will go full pedal travel in electric mode, and then there's that little button at the bottom of the pedal that can kick on the combustion engine if you need more. Here's the problem with all of those. Let's say I'm cruising around, my foot's sitting at the kickdown switch, as it is most of the time when I drive plug-in hybrids, especially the slow ones, and I'm like, oh crap, like I actually need to get out of this guy's way or merge on the highway or whatever. The only way to quickly kick on the combustion engine at that point is to fully depress the kickdown switch. So to go 110% throttle, right? Going past the point of resistance at the bottom. And then, especially in the winter time, and it just freaks me out a little bit, you're starting up typically a turbocharged, or in some cases supercharged and turbocharged, most of the time 4 or 6 cylinder engine. You're kicking on a high strung engine, typically cold, because again, you're doing most of your driving around electric, I am, at wide open acceleration, literally for its first start. And for those of you who know me, know that I do drive cars hard. I like to push them to the limits, but I try not to be mechanically abusive to things, right? When I'm driving a combustion car, I start it up, I let it sit for 20-30 seconds, build some oil pressure, get fluids moving, then I drive the car very gently, especially in the winter time. Let everything slowly come up to temperature the way it should. And then I drive the piss out of it, and then I actually drive it gently to let everything cool down before I shut it off. With a plug-in hybrid, it's like driving around electric, great, great, great. Oh my God, gotta get out of this guy's way, and my foot is welded to the floor to start up an engine. Porsche has thought of this. I don't know if it's for this reason, but it helps with my sanity, where because I'm only using 30% of that accelerator pedal travel, right? Let's say I needed more. The first 30% is already covered by electric. Let's say I go 35% throttle or 50% throttle. Now the combustion engine is starting up, and I'm not actually starting it up at full boost, at full power, at full revs. It's starting up, and it can gently work to get me to where I need to go. So from a longevity standpoint, it seems like that's really going to save a lot of trouble long term. Now, I've spoken with a few engineers, not at Porsche, but at other automakers, about how about the engine turning on and off constantly, and like, you know, is that bad for it? And apparently no, that seems to be pretty good. If anything, a lot of engineers claim that combustion engines in plug-in hybrid situations may last longer, because even though your cold starts might be more aggressive, especially in the tuning, like I mentioned, where you have to use the kickdown switch, you know, in an emergency, you actually have so many less cold starts from just moving it around the driveway or moving it to the store and back, that it sort of offsets, and I get that. The other thing you're able to do is when the engine's off is you can actually retain some heat. Typically there's flaps that can close, and the engine can retain heat on downhills. It's not constantly warming up, cooling down, and those temperature cycles does affect longevity as well. One thing I would love to do is live with a plug-in hybrid for a year or something like this and just see how I use it, because I still don't know. I'm still fundamentally for myself against plug-in hybrids because I live my life maximizing electric range in them. I'm here in one of the best driving roads ever, and I'm filming a video in electric mode and not shredding, right? And so that is a little bit of a mental challenge for me to get over. And look, we even have Subarus pulling over for us. Thank you very much. And we haven't even kicked on the combustion engine yet. That's never happened in a plug-in hybrid to me before, ever. It's really kind of nice to be able to have this right-sized electric motor, this throttle pedal that's right there and good. So yeah, I'd like to run one for a year, see how I use it, see how it feels cold starting, doing all these things that I'm so curious about. But essentially, the plug-in hybrid systems that I would feel most comfortable owning long-term, or even buying second-hand, you know, assuming it's from an owner who didn't take care of it, like most people don't take care of their cars. This system seems to be the most that's, I would say, safe for my heart, for my soul. I feel okay with it because it starts up under pretty much no load when we go past. And it's got great electric range in this particular car, the Cayenne's plug-in hybrid. And yeah, all seems good. What I really want to sample next is the Panamera plug-in hybrid, because that uses an electric motor with a dual clutch transmission, which means that not only does it have to obviously select the gear, but it has to then work clutches. So what I would be fascinated to find out is, does it slip the clutch at start like it would with a combustion engine, or does it leave everything connected and go to zero? I don't know, because an electric motor can start from zero. It'd be fascinating to get electric motor RPM from maybe a CAN data and see how it handles low speed, you know, cruising through traffic. Oh, just fascinating stuff here. So the ultimate torture test of the Cayenne continues as we go up the hill, of course. I'm surprised it hasn't overheated, and we've already done 10 miles of pretty much wide open acceleration. Not wide open, but, you know, hard throttle. That's wide open right there. You can hear a little bit of electric whine, but it's so silent. And we're just gaining on this guy in electric mode. Like, I have to go so gentle on the accelerator pedal. It's really good, really good. And so, would I still prefer a battery electric vehicle over this for myself? Absolutely. Would I recommend a plug-in hybrid Porsche over a full combustion Porsche? That's the big thing. I think the answer is absolutely. And this is a great taste. A lot of our audience argues for plug-in hybrids. I'm notoriously not necessarily for them, but a lot of our audience argues for plug-in hybrids because it's the gateway drug, if you will. Gets you a taste of electrification. My standpoint on most plug-in hybrids is like, it's a gateway drug to electrification. So what you're telling me is the electric part of my car is really slow and I don't go that far and it takes forever to charge up. Like, that doesn't show the benefits of electrification to me. But at least here with the Porsche, driving it isn't that slow. It's very additive. It's a really good holistic experience for a newbie to the plug-in EV world to leave the car in E mode and actually experience you know, real driving in electric mode, because it doesn't feel like you're maxing anything out. And did I mention this car still shreds? Like, let's just go as hard as we can here really quick in full electric mode, just keeping it matted. Just sending it in full EV mode, it still lets me give everything. This is this is a very cool experience to be able to drive a plug-in hybrid like this. I've never experienced anything like it. And I love the pedal programming. That is the key to all of this, is this pedal programming. So right at the end, we're going to run the battery all the way out. We're almost there. We're at 10% state of charge. It's still giving us full power, by the way. I don't think we're in that peak power, but it's still full nominal power. Yeah, definitely we've used up our peak of the electric motors, what it feels like, and downshift there from 6th to 5th, using that torque multiplication now of a lower gear ratio, still just matted. And we are maintaining faster than most people drive on this road in full battery electric. This is great. Coming in a little bit under brakes with some regen, letting it roll. Man, this thing still handles so nicely. These tires are so good too. I don't know what they put on this thing, but something way too aggressive for a Cayenne. I mean, like, we are hauling through these corners and not getting a hint of tire squeal. There's a little bit. I had to do it. I had to show you we're driving quickly with some audible noise. You wouldn't know it by the electric mode. I'm surprised we're actually going this quick. I knew it was going to be good, but I've never driven it like this up until now. And the battery's out. It just has a little tiny green sliver, and it's still giving us full power. It's letting us go full send into corners. And there we go. E-power not available. The plunger's gone now. And so now I can go over to Sport Plus. Boom. Wait, that way. Sport Plus manual mode. And Sport Plus will target a 70% charge on the battery pack system. It's a rapid charge. It's still not that fast, if I'm honest. It's 18 kilowatt hours gross. I think about 13, 14 usable. I'll have to check my notes. But now it's going to just go, okay, any opportunity, charge up the electric system from the motor here, either on deceleration or from leftover combustion power. However, if I go hard throttle into, as an input, it will still use whatever's in the battery pack to boost to do it. And one thing that Sport Plus mode does a really good job of is compensating for turbo lag. So for example, coming out of a corner, smack the throttle. Look, big boost of e-power. As soon as the turbo spools up, it backs right down. So it gives me this very progressive throttle application. And man, when you go full beans, if you go full beans, it will use the full combustion power and the full electric power, which is great. And yes, you can cover some ground. So make sure you take a look at my driving review for more of this kind of stuff and some great roads. Just having an absolute blast. And it's got so much mid-range grunt, you don't even need to rev it out all the way, but it sounds great when you do. This is about the electric stuff, not the combustion stuff, but I'll just give you a good taste of the full sound profile, shall I? Here we go, about 2,000 RPM to the kickdown switch. We'll hit the limiter, and it holds at the limiter unless you go past the kickdown switch, when then it will upshift automatically for you. Wonderful stuff. Let's go do the range test. So we're going to start full, beautiful weather. I'll show you how far you can expect to go on a single charge here in the Cayenne PHEV plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. We are charged up to 100%. You can see that right there. And you can also see it remembered to go into e-power since we're fully charged, which is great. So I shouldn't even have to change a setting. It should just be in full electric mode. We're going to run 68 degrees auto in electric mode like it is right now, which is great. Yeah, had a little bit of fun with this up in the canyons. Okay, let's unplug. It's locked in. I think we have to click this, very European programming. Unplug, and let's waste no time. Let's go. So the settings for the normal city range test, again, charged to 100%. The vehicle's predicting 28 miles. That's pretty good. So chassis height regular, everything in normal. We don't go like crazy efficient on these because this is how I would want to drive around town. So let's put it in drive. I'll update you throughout the drive, and we're going to try and end right back around here. And that way we don't have any major elevation changes, and hopefully it's before, looks like it might rain. Hopefully it doesn't rain. Whatever happens, happens. Off to Starbucks first. We're going to do our typical city driving, which is a mix of mostly under 40 miles an hour, no more than 40 miles an hour, stop and go with also some cruising around, but no more than 40 miles an hour. And the nice thing is the Porsche is really easy to keep the combustion engine from staying off. So it's a really cool looking Mustang right over there, isn't it? Let's go do this test. All right, Starbucks drive-through, really tight turn test. Good thing we have the rear steering option, and she comes right around without even curbing it. Check that out. By the way, here's what we're running for climate control, soft fan, regular temperature in the footwell. You can actually say if you want your footwell warmer or cooler, which is very nice. Eco AC, everything kind of just set in how I would drive it every day, you know, commuting, for example. This is what I would do, 26 miles projected. We're actually back from where we started. I didn't realize the Starbucks was here. And so far we have driven 2 miles and we've only lost 1 mile of range. So let's just see what happens. I will say the creeping power in this is a little bit odd to get used to, because sometimes the electric motor provides a lot of torque and then at low speed you're just like riding the brakes because it's doing creep a little bit, and then the electric motor says, oh, you actually don't want creep, and then you're like, er. So it's just a little bit of weird low speed calibration. Occasionally, it doesn't happen every time, but there is auto hold. So if I hit the brake pretty hard, you can see the hold comes on. I don't need to keep my foot on the brake. We're just hanging out here. And what a lovely place this is. I love the steering wheel in Porsches. I love the steering ratio. Love the rear steering option. And, you know, for not being like a totally excessively optioned vehicle, it feels so nice in here. And I really don't think you need any more power, but we'll get to that later on in the video. Holding here, I have nice gauges that shows me when I'm outputting power or when I'm charging. All good. Let's order some Starbies. The roads are just totally empty around here on this early morning. Very odd. Very odd. We are at 50% state of charge. The vehicle is expecting 14 miles remaining. We've driven 12.2, and that's, I'm guessing, because at least last time I did this, it let me go a little bit below 0 indicated, because of course there's big buffers with the battery, things like that. So we're just cruising through neighborhoods doing typical city driving that people would do, and loving driving the Cayenne around. Whoa, and the combustion engine just kicked back on 0.1 miles ago. So we got a full 25.7 miles on a single charge. And we literally started right on the other side of this building. So almost a full loop style test. Took an hour and 23 minutes to drive about 26 miles. I went to Rivian's Irvine headquarters, did a whole bunch of cool looking around, and it just kicked on. Now it's hybrid auto. If I try and go back to E, it says E-Power not available. So it's going to charge up the battery a little bit, and then it's just going to run like a normal hybrid until we charge it back up again.